Hello, everyone. My name is Jeremy Leong. I am the program manager for the Industrial Demonstrations Program within DOE's Office of Clean Energy Demonstrations. I'm joined here today by two of my colleagues, Christina Walleran, who leads our program's stakeholder engagements, and Jill Capitasto, who is one of our energy justice liaisons. So we're really excited to talk to you today about our program and our current $6 billion funding opportunity announcement written to catalyze high impact, large-scale, transformational advanced industrial facilities to significantly reduce greenhouse gas emissions in the energy-intensive industrial subsectors. So this webinar is scheduled for an hour, but most likely it'll be closer to about 30 minutes, just so you can gauge your time. So let's jump into the slides here. If we can go on to the next slide. Before we get into the details, I just wanted to note the disclaimer. I know many of you have seen this if you've attended any of our other webinars or speaking engagements. Everything we're going to talk about today is publicly available information from our FOAs. This is meant to be informational and it's available to everyone. Most importantly, the version of the FOA that's published in Exchange is the controlling document. So if you happen to hear or see anything that deviates from the FOA itself, please always follow what's written in the FOA. So enough of the disclaimer, let's move to the next slide here. Many of you are familiar with our office, so I'm not going to go over all of the details. However, I do want to emphasize a few components of our mission statement because they translate directly into the opportunity we're here to discuss today. One is the importance of partnerships. We want to work with you. The way that the FOA is written is that these are what we call cooperative agreements. So there's going to be significant and substantial involvement on both of our ends. So building the partnership is really, really important between us and the eventual applicants and the eventual project performers. We're also stressing, we are here to do demonstration projects at scale. And so we'll discuss what this means in later slides. But it has to do with this concept of demonstration to deployment and the implications to market liftoff. And then finally, accelerate deployment, market adoption, as well as, very importantly, equitable transition, all reflected within the FOA priorities. Next slide, please. Now, I know that many of you have seen this slide before, but it shows you where OSED falls within the department and the types of projects we solicit. Think of this as a continuum on the readiness level, as we really couple and address the balance between technical, project, and market risks at the demonstration regime. We're looking at projects generally at the TRL 7 and 9 phase that have market adoption challenges. And really, when you see where OSED is near the bottom of this chart with the two vertical red lines, our goal is really to bridge that gap between applied R&D and deployment. So we sort of fill in that really nice sweet spot on the demonstration space. Next slide, please. So at a very high level, these are the goals that we'd like to achieve with this FOA. With the unprecedented amount of funding for transformational industrial, advanced industrial facilities, we want to solidify a first mover advantage for US industry in low and net zero carbon manufacturing. We want to help substantiate the market for clean products through high impact replicable solutions. And finally, we want to build broadly shared prosperity for American workers and communities. So I hope that I was able to provide a little bit of a background and context for today's webinar. I'd like to now turn the floor over to Christina Walren, our program stakeholder and engagement lead, to talk a little bit more about the FOA itself. And then I'll come back for some closing remarks. So Christina, take it away.
Thanks, Jeremy. And it's great to see you all here today. I know that I have spoken with many of you as we have scoped this process, and it's really gratifying to be able to talk with you directly about the document that we've put out to solicit proposals for your projects. I will say up front, I'm about to get into some of the details of the program, but I just want to thank you all. We know that while this is a really exciting opportunity, the amount of time that it takes for someone like you to look into it and to think about what you might want to put forward is not trivial. And we also know that while there really are so many opportunities right now, and that's incredibly exciting, that means that you are looking at more and more things. So thank you for being here. Thank you for considering this. And we really couldn't do what we do without you. So as Jeremy mentioned, I'm going to go through some of the thinking around the funding opportunity announcement to hopefully give some context to what we're looking for. So by design, we have looked at shaping this FOA in a way that preserves flexibility for industry. It's supportive of multiple technology pathways and really is designed to invite you all to present your best solutions. So you should think of the following 4 points as the guiding principles that we are looking at to maximize the transformational potential of these funds. So to start, deep decarbonization. We want to demonstrate significantly less carbon intensive industrial production processes and lead to cleaner materials. Second, timeliness. So I'm going to talk a little bit about this when we get into the project and topic areas, but we're looking at rapid technology demonstrations that can address emissions in the near term, meet the funding horizons that we have set by Congress, and be replicated by fast followers. We also are looking closely at market viability. And so as Jeremy mentioned, this ties in with our mission space in the Office of Clean Energy Demonstrations. So our technological approaches really should be designed to spur follow-on investments for widespread decarbonization. So we're looking at market viability of the technologies we'd support, but we're also really thinking through the viability of the materials produced and looking at the potential for partnerships between buyers and sellers of the goods that are going to come out of these projects. And then finally, community benefits is very important to the work that we do. And my colleague Jill is going to talk a little bit about that here, but that's one of the core pillars. And it's notable that the Inflation Reduction Act actually allows us to prioritize that by saying that we should look at the greatest benefit for the greatest number of people in a facility's location. Next slide, please. So we are really seeking to maximize the transformational potential of these funds through first or early of a kind projects. And I think from a definitional perspective, that's something that has raised a number of questions from folks. So when we think about this, again, there is some flexibility here. We're really looking for applicants to substantiate their projects and why the funds can help them meet these priority criteria. So when we think about the types of projects, they could include the traditional, first of a kind demonstration that you might be thinking about. So that would be for technologies that have been proven at a pilot scale, but haven't been deployed commercially. It could also mean technologies that are being pursued internationally, but don't have a foothold yet in the United States. But then we would also consider other early of a kind projects that face market or adoption risks, and that our funding could help catalyze their uptake. Jeremy mentioned this commercial scale piece. Again, I think this is a place where there are a number of questions, especially because we're looking at so many different industries. So I think as a guiding principle, we should be thinking about projects that are commercial scale or commercially relevant. And one way to think about this is that those projects should really include a path from their demonstration and deployment that includes sustained operation after completion. So that's a big benchmark for us here. We really want to build things that will meaningfully continue to contribute to a decarbonized economy after we walk away. We don't want to have projects that we're going to meaningfully build with the goal of taking them down. And then again, this importance, this emphasis on enabling follow-on investment. So we are really looking for projects to catalyze non-federally funded follow-on investments after the project period. Next slide. Back one slide, please, Emily. I think we are, is there a program scope slide in here? Let me talk about the project slide, but Emily, if you would do me a favor and check and see if we have the topic area slide as well. So each of our projects is going to follow a 4-phase structure. So there's initial planning and analysis activities in phase 1. Phase 2 broadly should be thinking about finalizing engineering designs and business development, site access, community and workforce agreements, National Environmental Policy Act review, permitting and offtake agreements. And then phase 3 is going to be construction. So that's going to really focus on installation, integration, and construction activities. And then finally, phase 4 is really ramp up to operations. So I think it's notable, a few things on this slide. One is that we recognize that these are long and complex projects. They are going to evolve over the course of the project. And so we also know that the different projects are going to, have different milestones based on the technology that we're looking at. So we're going to work with project performers to really tailor their approach after selections. This is something that would be worked out as well on an individual basis. I think that as well, it's important to note that since we are looking for a range of different types of projects, projects that have completed initial phases will be eligible to undergo accelerated early reviews for due diligence. I also think that there, has been some potential question about, whether or not we would be looking at a competitive down select process, and the answer is no. So all projects that are selected under this funding opportunity will be eligible to complete all 4 phases, pending the successful execution of milestones and completion of go-no-go reviews. And so those reviews would also be established during the negotiation phase. And so this is really consistent with our overall project management approach. Now, one more thing that I want to emphasize on this slide, for the funding that we're looking at, the bulk of the funds are going to be coming from the Inflation Reduction Act. The Inflation Reduction Act has a sunset deadline on these funds for September 30th, 2026, but the funds don't need to be spent by September 30th, 2026. They need to be obligated. And that's a little bit inside baseball, but effectively what it means is that, we need to assign them to a project at that date. The funds expire in 2031. So I think, it's something that we have asked projects to really think about. That's why we're hoping to have them reach phase 3 construction, because we meaningfully feel that we will have been able to manage risk at that stage. And I just wanted to give a little context because I know that that is quite quick and can seem like a real challenge. It's just something that, we want to navigate, and we appreciate your thoughtfulness around projects that might be able to meet that timeline. So next slide, please. Areas of interest. So, I think it's notable here that our topic areas are really focused on the types of projects. And again, this is in the context of this optionality. So we really would be looking at, trying to ensure that we can capture greenfield facilities, brownfield facilities, accelerated new builds, and then retrofits for single process lines. And that's something that could be applicable to a wide range of industries. But we do have areas of interest, and this is based on where we've been directed by the legislation. So we have a special emphasis here on high energy and carbon intensive processes and industries. So looking at iron and steel, aluminum, cement and concrete, glass, pulp and paper, industrial ceramics, chemicals and refining, and other energy intensive industrial sectors. Cross-cutting opportunities are also something that are of interest of us. I do want to note that applications are not limited to these industries, but all applicants must substantiate their project's ability to achieve the priority criteria, and so they'll be judged in the context of all responses. And in terms of these industries, I want to highlight another piece of our priority criteria. So these aren't just energy intensive industries themselves, but they're also large industries. And so when we think about overall greenhouse gas emissions reduction savings, that's something that comes into play when we think about the replicability of the projects we're looking at and the potential for uptake of technologies that we may be able to prove out through this opportunity. Next slide. Eligible applicants. So DOE, we are anticipating providing awards to teams that are led by a single for-profit organization or owner-operator of an eligible facility, depending on the topic area. So the topic areas, they really fall along the lines of the legislation that we're looking at here. So we have the bipartisan infrastructure law for our first topic area. And so this is one that we'll be looking at really world-leading energy intensive, new ways to look at energy intensive industrial production processes in full facilities. And that's one of the main reasons there is because the funding does not have a horizon for it. So we're saying that it could be 8 to 12 years for these funds, but it's something that the legislation doesn't direct us towards the timeline. For topic areas 2 and 3, which are the Inflation Reduction Act opportunities, these are the ones that we're going to be looking at: accelerated greenfield builds, brownfield or large facility overhauls, and then unit process retrofits. For these, the legislation also really directs us towards what the eligible entities should be. And so it says that we should look at owners or operators of domestic, non-federal, non-power industrial or manufacturing facilities that are engaged in energy intensive industrial processes. So that could include co-owners or co-operators as well. So we're really encouraging applicants. We recognize that it's going to take a village to successfully work on these projects. And so while we are looking at prime applicants or prime awardees of a certain type, we do know that experts, universities, labor unions, community-based organizations, NGOs, and others are going to be really, really important to the ultimate success of these projects. And so we really encourage folks to pull together groups that can substantiate their project's ability for success and look at the well-rounded project's ability to meet the criteria. Next slide. So for demand side initiatives, projects under this FOA should really be looking at establishing the viability and competitiveness of domestically manufactured low carbon products. And we know that this is a challenging time in a lot of ways because the market for clean products is really still being established. And so the success of these technologies will depend on our ability to substantiate this market. There are some early opportunities here that can help to drive us towards a little bit more definition there. And we're really hoping that these projects and looking for these projects to help substantiate that. So Buy Clean prioritizes the federal government's purchase of steel, concrete, asphalt, and flat glass that have lower levels of embodied greenhouse gas emissions. So these 4 construction materials are really covered in this FOA. They represent 98% of the government's purchased construction materials. The First Movers Coalition, so while not a federal initiative, is a way that is encouraging companies to use their purchasing power to create these early markets. And so, that coalition is really looking at formulating purchase commitments and aggregating demand, and then also supporting their members in delivering on the commitments. And then finally, when we look at embodied greenhouse gas emissions reporting, there are 2 early initiatives that I think are signaling where we are going. So the EPA is executing on Inflation Reduction Act money, specifically looking at carbon labeling for construction materials. And then the Securities and Exchange Commission has proposed a rule change that would require climate-related disclosures. Again, we really hope that our projects can help substantiate this moving forward. So with that, I'm going to introduce my colleague, Jill, who is going to talk a little bit about community benefits. So if we can move to the next slide, and I will have Jill take the microphone.
Thanks, Christina. So as Christina mentioned, I'm here to talk about community benefits. And OSED recognizes that we are at a pivotal moment in the US clean energy transitions. Our actions now will have far-reaching and long-lasting effects, not just for the communities where our projects are being built, but for the entire country. We are recognizing, though, that these changes are going to be especially important for the communities that live near the sites of energy infrastructure and industry. So OSED is requiring applicants for all of its FOAs to include community benefits plans. And the intent is to help ensure that benefits of the clean energy transition are equitably shared, and also to mitigate negative impacts. We're prioritizing benefits, community benefits, to ensure that the next chapter in America's energy story is marked by greater justice, equity, security, and resilience. We also recognize that strong community benefits plans can help reduce project risk by shoring up public support for these projects. And as Christina already mentioned, the IRA supports this goal by giving priority to projects that provide the greatest benefit to the greatest number of people in nearby communities. And on the right here, you can see the different components of our community benefits plans. One of them is greatest benefit for greatest number, and that's requiring applicants to, as it says, provide the greatest good for greatest number of people in surrounding communities, including through the reduction of other pollutants and waste streams. And the intent here is to really maximize project benefits and minimize harms. And jumping back up to the top of this list, our plans also have requirements related to community and labor engagement. This is to ensure that people impacted by energy development, and in this case, industrial decarbonization, have a role in decisions that affect their lives. Another component is diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility to support equitable access to wealth building opportunities for everyone, especially those facing systemic barriers to quality employment and training. Another piece here is investing in the American workforce to build the skilled long-term workforce needed to power the energy transition and industrial sector and help ensure quality jobs are open to all Americans. The last component is about supporting the Justice 40 initiative. So again, a focus on maximizing project benefits and minimizing harms, especially to disadvantaged communities. And this is all in support of the Justice 40 initiative, which directs that at least 40% of the benefits of certain federal investments accrue to disadvantaged communities. Next slide. We're viewing these community benefits plans as concrete tools to help applicants move from a vision, so for example, a vision for an equitable energy future, to clear goals with measurable outcomes that are backed by implementation plans with actions and resources. So each section of the CBP that I outlined on the previous slide will require implementation strategies, milestones, and timelines, as well as clear metrics for measuring progress towards community benefits plans goals, as well as plans for ensuring transparency and accountability to impacted communities. Applicants are encouraged to review the guidance that we've developed for community benefits plans, and that's available through the first link on this slide. And it goes into a lot more detail about what each of the community benefits plans requirements and provides some resources and examples for applicants. There's also more information available through this link on community benefits plans frequently asked questions. And yeah, we are happy to answer questions, but there's a lot of information to be found there. And I'll pass it back to Christina.
Thank you, Jill. I am going to go ahead, if you don't mind, everyone. There's one slide that I want to make sure that we cover during this webinar. So we're just going to do a quick change of decks. So I wanted to make sure that I covered this topic area slide. We are really looking here at the program scope, and there are a few things that I want to emphasize. So for one, all values here are anticipated. We say that there are these ranges that we have put out, but we offer applicants the opportunity, if they would like to propose a project that is less than or greater than the range here, that they can do so, but they should substantiate their project's ability to meet the priority criteria when they apply. But at a high level, as I mentioned before, we really have scoped these topic areas so that they can preserve functionality and flexibility for these projects. So in topic area 1, which is the bipartisan infrastructure law funding, as I discussed before, we're really going to be looking at near net zero facility build projects. We have 8 to 12 years anticipated for this, but there is no statutory funding deadline. And then for topic areas 2 and 3, the Inflation Reduction Act funds, this is where we are looking at projects to meaningfully meet this phase 3 construction milestone by September 30th, 2026. And so that's something that we'll be looking at in the project negotiation phase. Exactly how projects will be doing that. But it's based on the time horizon set out in the legislation. And again, there are a number of different projects that could potentially qualify for these funds. Everything from new builds with accelerated planning, development, and permitting strategies to large overhauls for existing facilities. And then finally, upgrades, retrofits, and operational improvements for systems or critical unit operations, single process lines, that sort of thing within existing facilities. Again, all of our projects require at least 50% cost share. This is something that we look at by statute. So let me move us then to this next slide, which is the timeline. We really are going to be looking at the timeline that we have outlined here. I want to start by saying that we recognize that this is accelerated. We know that there would never be enough time, honestly, that these are big projects, but we have really tried to balance a number of different factors to give as much optionality for industry as possible here. So we have concept papers that will be due on April 21st, 2023. Then we will issue encourage, discourage notifications to everyone who submits a concept paper. I'm going to talk a little bit more about concept papers on the next slide. Then there will be an application drafting phase. And so we made the determination that we wanted to give as much time as possible for this full application phase. Now, let me say that, graphically as it's represented here, there's a gap between the two, but there's nothing stopping an applicant from starting to draft that application now. But we are, including this concept paper phase so that we can, try to help folks manage their time. As I mentioned at the beginning, we know it's non-trivial to pull something like this together. So encourage, discourage notifications will really be designed to help you understand the likelihood of your application being meritorious and think through whether or not you want to submit a full application. Then we'll review applications after they come in on August 4th and hope to announce selections in late 2023 or early 2024. Concept papers, as I mentioned, this is something that we really hope can be a tool for you all to be able to put forward an idea, get reactions from the department, and then build it out into a full proposal. One thing that's important to note is that applicants must submit an eligible concept paper in order to submit a full application. The thing to know, though, is that even for applicants that are discouraged, you're still eligible to submit a full application, but it's really designed to help manage the time that it takes to actually submit and pull that together. Concept papers are 10 pages. I would encourage you to take a look at the funding opportunity announcement for additional detail, but a cover page, project plan and project team description, community benefits plan, and then management and organization. Really just to give us a high level idea of the project that you're considering. There's one other point that I want to make here, which is that, an entity may submit more than one concept paper in application to this funding opportunity, provided that each describes a unique project. So this is a question that has come up a lot, and it's something that, I wanted to make sure to highlight here. So take a look at section 3.4 if you are interested in learning more about that eligibility criteria. But something to consider if there are a few different projects you're considering, or if there are a few different makeups of a concept. Question and answer. So you all know, many of you who I have spoken with, that we are somewhat limited for legal reasons in terms of what we can answer, but in a private forum, but we are quite open in what we are able to consider if we are answering the question publicly. So if you have questions, email OSED Industrial, OSED_industrial at hq.doe.gov. Your questions will be posted anonymously. You can take a look at Exchange where we have already updated the Q&A. Your question may be answered already, and we're thinking about other ways to make that as visible as possible. So I also just want to make a note that we appreciate your patience. We've gotten a lot of questions, and again, we're really grateful for the interest. We're working as quickly as we can to get those answered. But again, a lot of questions come in a number of times, and so take a look, see if your question's been answered, and please don't hesitate to submit if you have one that we should get to. There are a couple of questions that I do want to highlight that have come up a number of times, and we understand the need for clarity here. So one is that many folks have asked whether an applicant can submit to multiple funding opportunity announcements and/or to the loan program office. And so the answer is yes. You can submit to multiple opportunities and walk down the path with them. Ultimately, you may need to choose when it comes to which award, if you get to that stage, you want to pursue. And the other thing to note here is a federal support restriction. So entities cannot use federal funds to match the cost sharing obligation or to support the same scope. However, you are able to pursue funds for substantially different projects. It's also true that you cannot use a loan from the federal government to meet the federal cost share. So just something to consider, but we know that there are a lot of different potential pathways, and these things take time. There's nothing that would keep you from pursuing multiple options right now. And the FOA also has some additional detail on that. The second one is whether a technology provider can serve as a prime recipient for a proposal that involves a number of owners of eligible facilities. And so what we have said here, we know that the Inflation Reduction Act has some really specific criteria, but that we are saying that we're going to allow co-owners and co-operators to apply as prime applicants and meet those criteria. So again, take a look at the FOA if you're curious, and then the Q&A also provides some additional details. Resources. So please sign up for our website and our newsletter if you're interested in learning more about the programs that we have. That's the best way to know that you're going to be the first to know when things come out. Also encourage folks to take a look at OSED Exchange if you haven't already. That's where our funding opportunity is posted. That's where we post any additional documents or things that we have answered, and also it's where the Q&A is as well. And then take a look at the registration checklist. So here are links to some of the things that you'll need to look at in order to submit an application. I do want to note that we've gotten a number of questions about SAM registration because it can take some time. So if you think you're going to submit an application, I would encourage folks to start pursuing that now. But don't worry, that's only required for application submission, not for concept papers. So, just it's something to make sure that you have in hand by August, but it's not something that you need by the April 21st deadline for concept papers. So with that, I'm going to pitch it back to Jeremy to take us out.
Great, Christina and Jill, thanks for that overview. For everyone watching live or offline in the future, on behalf of our program team, our Office of Clean Energy Demonstrations, and the department, I want to thank you for your time and your attention. We are all really excited about this program and look forward to working together, potentially with many of you in the future as partners. Just to kind of go through these quick bullet points here. For more information, please visit our website at energy.gov/OSED. The slides for this and past webinars are posted and available to anyone to download. So please feel free to share those slides. And the slides for this webinar has already been posted. If you have any questions regarding the FOA, as Christina mentioned, please email our Q&A box at osed_industrial@hq.doe.gov. And then again, as Christina mentioned, keep your eyes out on OSED Exchange, where we post the responses to your questions. And then finally, if you'd like to receive news about OSED's program, please sign up for our newsletter at energy.gov/OSED/contact us. So in closing, stay tuned. We intend to have another webinar after the concept paper notifications go out so that we can discuss additional guidance based on what we see in real time in the concept papers themselves and the submissions. With that, thanks again for your attention, and until next time, take care.